you can actually break up with somebody via the Bible app, iPads, and
digital pacifiers.
Digital pacifiers.
Those digital pacifiers, they are not burning calories. They are going to stay up till 10 o'clock because they're not tired yet. How can the Lord use the gifts and talents that He's given me in order to honor Him with a career?
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Courageous Conversations podcast. Once again, I'm joined with Jonathan Bernhardt, my friend and colleague, in that order. And we are, once again, so excited that you have decided to join us here on the Courageous Conversations podcast. Now, just by way of a little refresher, we call the thing Courageous Conversations because the goal is equipping us, letting God's word equip us to have the conversations necessary in 2025 to share the love of Christ with others. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes that can look like preparing a student to go off to college or navigating the college classroom or the workspace or all of the different worldviews that circulate out, including talking about missions, which is something we've done on episodes before, talking about
relationships too.
Yes. All the situationships. Yes, exactly. And learned about how you can actually break up with somebody or start a relationship with somebody via the Bible app. So if you're ever looking for an opportunity to be able to chat, to chat back and forth with somebody, I've got it in the front of my Bible. That was a note. We had a student share that one time. There was a Bible app communication happening via the little notes section on the YouVersion Bible app. So they'll figure out anything. First it was Google Docs and now it's Bible apps. But anyway, the reason that we're doing this podcast is talking about the courageous conversations. What does it look like for us to navigate these waters? And I think summertime presents a unique opportunity to, especially in school world and in the school rhythm. I know once you get into kind of the quote unquote real world and have a real job, quote unquote, that all of a sudden June is here and you're still working. Yeah. You might get off 2 days for the 4th of July or something like that, but you just work through the summer and you're like, wait, I used to get summers off. I used to get Christmas off. What happened? And it's like, no, you get paid time off. You get 2 weeks off, whatever it is. But for those of us who have kids at home or for those of us who work in education, for college students, summertime presents a unique opportunity. Now, here's how I think it would be good to frame this up. Right. We sometimes don't feel like summertime is a unique opportunity. We get bored. My kids get bored. I, as their father, am tempted to entertain them with iPads and
digital pacifiers.
Digital pacifiers. And so what does it look like? I guess the question is, what does it look like for us as both parents, and I'm thinking of high school and college students as well, because that's a word that we gave to some guys that we were discipling up here just to be intentional with their summer. Yeah. Well, okay, we can say that, but what do you do? So let's start at home. Let's start for us as dads. Okay. I've got 4 kids. You've got 2 kids. We're just trying to navigate life with them. There are going to be moments where they're bored and annoying. And listen, I will say this one last thing to parents. It is very tempting to just give them the digital pacifier. I get it. And there's times I have succumbed to that temptation. Oh, yeah. And sometimes it's necessary. Like on long car rides, okay, play with the iPad. But even that could be a missed opportunity too. Yep. So what are just some of the things you're thinking about as we enter into summer and maybe being the catalyst for some conversations that as my kids get older, I kind of find myself needing a little more courage and a little more oomph to try to have some more intentional conversations that don't sound like, put that down, don't do that, don't touch that, stay right there, you come here, clean that up, right? Like all the commands you give the 4-year-old.
Well, I think there's kind of a twofold approach. Like if you are like us, you work in education, you have the opportunity to be home with your kids. I think that does look a little bit different. Mm-hmm. I think you get the opportunity to be more present, to have a schedule where you can actually interact with your children, whether that be even doing some reading, whether it be kind of like again, letting them see you in a quiet time or having that opportunity to do kind of like a little mini VBS with them in the mornings to start your day. I do think it looks different when you have that bandwidth in your time in a day because of education. If you're someone who still works, I would continue to set up some type of scheduled framework. Like, hey, while I'm gone to work, especially with older kids, like I need you to get X, Y, and Z done. Most students will not have, especially high school kids who are home for the summer, necessarily like bedtimes or wake up times. But I do think it's helpful to be like, hey, you should really be in bed by this time so you can wake up at this time. Just kind of teaching them how to manage that time and not waste that time away. Again, I get it. They just had a really intense school year, especially the high school kiddos. The thing about some of my former AP students who just took like 5 AP tests in 2 weeks, they're going to need a couple of days off. I get it. A brain break. Everyone needs it.
Sure.
But then not missing the opportunity for the rest of that summer, whether it's to invest in them academically, spiritually, even vacations. I know we like the term, vacation. We're vacating our normal lives and we're kind of escaping it. But I think one of the most powerful and profound things you can do on a vacation is continue the consistency of having that quiet time. Kids seeing it, reading with them at night before they go to bed, something from scripture, praying with them before they go to bed, maintaining those things. So when they understand, yes, we're maybe vacationing away from our traditional, normal, everyday routines, this is not one we're sacrificing.
Yeah.
And I think even just them seeing that modeled has such tremendous impact on how they see and view summer as well.
Well, I'll give you a tangible example. So one of my children is reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe,
Classic.
Which, fun fact, that was the only book I ever failed an accelerated reader test on.
You didn't just watch the movie?
No, well, this was back in the day before. By the way, when that movie came out, I was a freshman in college. I was bored to tears. I totally missed, and I'm okay with admitting this because Jesus loves me and His grace is sufficient. I totally missed the entire point of him writing that book, which was Aslan is Christ. And I'm sitting there in an Easter service while in seminary, and they showed that clip, and I go, oh,
light bulb.
Yeah. And then I'm like, then the tears, I'm like, oh, that's such a beautiful story. Well, fourth grade Jason didn't get that. And so he was really confused by, what is it, Mr. Tumnus, the half fawn looking human creature. That was not my jam. Like the whole like weird mystical
kind of fantasy world is
Narnia is not my jam. That's not my thing.
Shame.
My thing is more Mission Impossible. That's just me, Top Gun. That's where that's those are lanes, any Tom Cruise running movie. I know the power of understanding that analogy. And so trying to have conversations with my kids about Christ, well, one of them is reading that. So like as we're cuddling in bed, instead of just, watching YouTube for 5 minutes or something, so I read some, she fell asleep. I was like, great. But it's the idea of like just building in that rhythm and that habit. And so it's always trying to be mindful, like the moments that I'm frustrated and feel bored, those are probably the moments that have the most redemptive power. So how can I be intentional with my kids in that moment when I'm not necessarily focused on that. And so what you're talking about vacations, still keeping your quiet time rhythm going, trying to have conversations with your kids about why you're doing that. Have you found anything particularly effective in summers and maybe even keeping the schedule? Because to be honest, and here's the thing, if you put your kids to bed at 8 in the summer, it's still light outside.
Yeah.
Why are we going to bed? It's still light outside. Like that's what they're I'm like, well, because we said so. Yeah. Like, so anything particularly effective at getting your kids, kind of keeping them on a rhythm, on a schedule, building in fun activities in the middle of that, but at the same time, like not turning into like the kids are staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning and eating Cheez-Its, watching reruns.
Well, again, and that's hard too, because our kids are younger, or at least my kids are really young. And so like, we don't have to worry about them going out and driving places or staying up super late. They don't have phones or screens in their rooms or anything like that. So It probably does look different, at where we are in our stage of life compared to if you have a high school or a college student who's returning and they've experienced independence. So sometimes being home, especially your summer after your freshman year of college, I think is one of the most challenging from a parental perspective as well as from the kid's perspective, because they're still your kid, but they feel like they're an independent adult and they've got that exposure to that independence. And yet when they come back home, they're now under your roof again. And so honestly, I'd say that was probably one of the most bizarre moments and dynamics between me and my parents when I was growing up, because it was kind of rethinking and refiguring out what that looks like. So even just sometimes having those conversations with your child about like, hey, what are your plans for the summer? Like, let's set goals if you have an older kid, and let me help you work towards those goals, whether that's finding a summer job, whether that's, volunteering in your community. But I think having those conversations with your kids who are older, when your kids are younger, for the nighttime thing, keeping them active. Again, those digital pacifiers, they are not burning calories. They are going to stay up till 10 o'clock because they're not tired yet.
Yep.
Whereas, again, if you have them run around outside and, again, a sprinkler
Yes.
They just run back and forth, like that.
That's like $12 at Lowe's. Like you're not having. I don't have a pool. I don't have a. You will go put the
squirt them with a hose.
Squirt them with the hose. Run around with them. Like you can, and those are the memories that they're going to cherish. And I think it's easy. It's tempting for us as parents to feel like, hey, we're not going to have the opportunities to like go do these big extravagance, whatever.
The big things.
No, they
go to the zoo.
Yes, exactly. And I think our kids crave our time. All right, now let's talk to the college student.
Okay.
All right. So you're looking at the college student, or let's say your recent grad, let's say recent grad college student. All right, it's summer, and they went. I know here the way we run our summer stuff is, our senior stuff is that they are. I mean, it's like that scene from Aladdin where Prince Ali shows up and there's the 75 golden camel.
Yep.
Right? You got okay. I'll keep singing because I know that's what y'all tuned in for. But like that's what it feels like. Like if you're a senior, they're driving in and it's just like streamers and like the boats with the fire hoses shooting over them.
And then they graduate.
And then they graduate, and then it's like, wait, what's my next senior activity? You don't have any.
Nope.
The diploma means you don't have any.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what do they do? Like they've got orientation, and maybe there was a lot of spiritual growth, either freshman year of college, senior year of high school, wherever they kind of are in this mix, and they want to keep that going. But like the structure that helped catalyze that growth, all of a sudden just evaporated into thin air overnight.
Yep.
And at our project graduation, that's a long night because we're there from midnight to 5 a.m. for our little lock-in right after graduation. Yep. But it evaporates overnight. What do they do? I mean, and 18-year-old Jason, there was no discipline. Like it was literally, I was a feather and the wind just blew me wherever. It was no discipline. So like,
not surprised.
I know you shouldn't be. God has sanctified me in some areas, but there's still many others that need to be sanctified. But just some advice in that front.
Yeah, I think having a routine, having a schedule is great. Again, for a lot of students, having a job.
Yes.
And so like getting a job, making some money to take with you to college.
Hey, was that a benefit? Even if like you're sitting there, you go, I really don't need the money. Why is it a benefit to just go get a job?
I think learning just like what it's like to have a career and being responsible, showing up on time, fulfilling commitments, just getting used to what does a paycheck look like? Hey, why is my,
who is FICA?
Why is my math not mathing here? Where I get paid X amount an hour, work this many hours, but my paycheck's not matching up. So you can learn about taxes and then filing them eventually. But just I think getting that exposure to the working world, what it's like to have a boss, and just again meeting new people and getting used to, especially if you work in like food industries or customer service. I think everyone should have to. I think it should be like, I don't know, mandatory. You have to work in some kind of, food service jobs. So you can just learn how frustrating and it can be at times. I think that's helpful. But no, I think working is good. Save up some of that money. Start investing that if you can too. Yeah. Like even if you're like, well, I don't need the money because, I got a full scholarship or my mom and dad are helping with college, whatever. Still work. I mean, it's still helpful and it helps build that structure. It helps build like, okay, I know if I work afternoon shifts or morning shifts, then I know I have to get up at a certain time. I can't stay up too late. Or I think that's helpful. I think kind of starting with the end in mind, like if you're going to school and you're going to major in these things, like go ahead and start reading some of like the books, start, preparing yourself academically. But I think another big one for a lot of our seniors who just graduated or are going into their freshman year of college is leaving well. I think that's a really big thing. I know a lot of times seniors in the summer just want to hang out with all their friends all the time and get all those last whatevers in, last sunrise, sunset, last time at a Grizz game, last time at a Redbirds game, last time getting their favorite coffee together, last time getting Jerry Snow cone, it's all for those last. But I do think leaving well, like being able to have those conversations with like your parents, your grandparents, your friends, your mentors, your if you have like a D group leader, your youth pastor, and just saying like, hey, thank you, for what you've poured into me. Here's where I'm going. Here's my plan. What advice do you have? Saying your goodbyes, like really making sure that you are leaving well. Because when you leave and you go off to school, it may be months and or years before you see and talk to some of these people again. And so if there's something that either needed to be said that hasn't been said, or, again, whether that's thank you or just showing an attitude of being grateful, I just think leaving well is not something young people often do well.
Yeah,
because they often just intrinsically think about themselves more, and they also fail to kind of just see around them like you take your parents to dinner, and you pay. That's maybe why you need the job.
Yeah, I gotta get the job first.
But or do something extra nice for them because they have poured a lot into you to help you get to where you are. And they're just not often thanked as much as we need to. I mean, we have Mother's Day and Father's Day, but they should have more days.
All the days.
They should have more days. But just, I think that's one of those things that, especially as I get older and maybe get just a skosh bit wiser. But I've realized that there were missed opportunities in my youth to really say, so Mom, Dad, if you're watching, thank you for everything.
We'll need to clip that out and send that to them.
But I really do think that it's not just about investing that time well, but also leaving well.
Yeah. Well, and that's a new perspective for me, because I hadn't thought about like emphasizing that with some of our current students and having some of those like really important conversations. And I think that then even parlays into spiritual, like if you've got margin of time, which is something that as young parents, neither one of us have much of. Right. If you've got margin of time, like finding someone to pour into you this incredibly important book is such that's never time wasted. And so the other thing is, I would really encourage, like, if you've got margin of time this summer, like seek out someone to spend time with where you can be digging into this book and beginning to understand the beauty of what Christ has done for you. Because I think we were so easily distracted by, phones and whatever else is going on, that like we'll spend 3 hours a day scrolling on Instagram reels, but like we will not even remotely open up our Bible and try to study it in a deep way. Now, here's the other thing I would say. Don't do what I used to do, which was try to spend time with the Lord super late at night when I was super tired. And maybe you're a night owl and you do want to spend time. That's fine. But like not while you're falling asleep. I love the getting up early thing, or getting up early enough where you have a little bit of margin in the morning. And so, all right, now here's kind of my last question for this. Like, what do we think, just as parents, should be our prayer for the summer? So as we're thinking about the summer and we're thinking about spending time and maybe thinking about having some of those conversations like with our kids, and age appropriate, right? Right. You talking with your 4-year-old is going to look way different than me talking with my 12-year-old. Right. But I mean, I'm already thinking of conversations that I want to have with her that will take, I will have to sit down and be like, I need to have this conversation because it's going to take intentionality. Yeah. What should the prayer life look like for us as parents going into the summer?
Well, I think one of those is praying for those opportunities to have those conversations. And again, that will look, you're right, different for different ages. But I think making sure that you're praying about those opportunities, not just the words to say, but those opportunities arise. Whether that be like your kids are like, I'm bored. And then you talk about like, you know what, being bored isn't a bad thing. Yeah. Like it is through boredom and out of boredom that creativity is inspired. So like, okay, you're bored. So what can we do with that boredom? What can we do with your time now to invest it? Like that is a conversation that is created from an opportunity of them being bored. Yeah. So just praying for those moments, praying that both you and your kids use your time well. Yes. And wisely, to, and again, invest in both their spiritual, academic, physical, mental, all of the different, kind of areas of their life, I think is really helpful. And also pray for their future, not just like their upcoming school year, what teachers they're going to have, if they're going off to college, like that they stay on the straight and narrow in college. But I think praying about their future, whether that's just the next year or the years to come, really just kind of focusing on, again, those opportunities, the ways to invest, so that way when they do finally go off into the world, whether that's at 18 or 22, or for some a little bit later, that they can be ready, they can be prepared, they can land on solid ground and not have their feet in the sifting sand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, the summer provides us as an opportunity as parents to reflect on what worked and what didn't. Yeah. So I was listening to Dave Ramsey talk about just how he didn't burn out doing all of his bit stuff in life, and he's older now and started a company and did the thing, and how he didn't burn out. And he said he had these moments where kind of the loop was closed. Like he knew that he could push through certain busy seasons because at the end there was a closed loop, and at the end of that closed loop he could sit back and reflect. And so I thought about that. I was like, that's a really good point. Like for us, it's April and May are just insane in school world, and then all of a sudden, once again, snap your fingers and all the students are gone and the hallways are empty and they're waxing the floors. True story. They wax the floors and you have to avoid the floor wax.
And paint all the walls.
Yes, and they paint all the walls. So you have to avoid all of that. Like don't put your body up against the wet wall because that will go poor for your clothing.
Everyone.
But for me, I love looking back on the year that was and being like, all right, what worked, what didn't, and what can we tweak to do better next year. Unfortunately for my firstborn, she's the guinea pig. So there's a lot of what worked with her and what didn't. And then we're doing more of what worked with younger kids and less of what didn't. I think just as parents, and I think this is true as students. So like if you are, let's say you're a freshman who just returned from big SEC university and you're coming home and life came at you real fast. Like it was a just crazy, it's just so much going on, so much stimuli, all the stuff, school, social life, all those things. You come home and all of a sudden everything slows to a snail's pace, which is why you need to get a job. But everything slows to a snail's pace and you're like, all right, what just happened? I even remember this. This is obviously not the same podcast that I would talk about this, but when we got back from Ethiopia, I remember texting you after that whirlwind of a trip. It was a 7-day trip in which we traveled to the other side of the planet. I was like, hey, we did just actually do that. Like that's a thing that actually happened. And so that might be you, like after this school year, you're like, that's a thing that actually happened. Hey, let's be intentional to use the summer to plan for next year, because next year we want to do a couple things a little different to see if we can grow closer to the Lord, closer to friends, and all of those different things. All right, so anything that students can be praying for into their, I know we talked about it through the lens of parents, but like just prayer life with students, like just figuring out, hey, for the students that are college bound, for students that are in college, or maybe young adults who are just navigating the working world right now, who don't really have a summer anymore. Yeah. Just prayer life for them.
Well, I think that I really liked what you said about that reflection and the idea of using the summer to do that. Because I think, you always hear about like New Year's resolutions, New Year, new me, all that fun stuff. That all fizzles out in February anyway. But I think if you're on that school schedule, so if you're a student, educator, something like that, I actually like the summer as that time to reflect and then start while you have the time building in those positive routines and things that you want to exist in the next school year. Yeah. Start that in the summer, so that way, again, once you develop a habit, you can continue that on into the school year. So I actually like the summer more as a resolution time, if you will, for how to improve on the next year, more so than just new year, new me stuff. So I just thought I'd throw that one out there. Just thinking about that as you were talking, which is how this podcast works.
100%.
Because we talk and just kind of go back and forth.
That's the way this works.
But in terms of prayer life for students, again, like, if you're a high school student, I think that's going to be praying about your classes, your teachers, your friends, who's in the class, again, what you want out of it. Start asking the Lord where, what colleges are available and kind of what you need to be processing, especially for those upper level high school students. Again, instead of saying what college do you want to go to, ask what college does the Lord want me to attend? Instead of saying what do I want to be when I grow up, or what job do I want when I grow up, think, how can the Lord use the gifts and talents that he's given me in order to honor him with a career field? So even just reframing those questions and putting them kind of back in the idea of I'm doing these things for the Lord or unto the Lord or for his glory really does kind of help not totally change your path, but it gives a clear intentionality. And I know we use that word a lot, but it's a focus. It's a purposeful rather than just like, oh, I just happened to get this internship because I know this guy. It's like, no, like, is that really where the Lord is calling you? And I know we've talked about this before, but if I did what I wanted to do, I would have gone to law school. Yeah. I would not be sitting here right now. I would have not touched education with an 80-foot pole. That was not on my radar whatsoever. But the Lord really did a work on me my senior year of high school, and I felt that pull, and I felt that that's what he wanted me to do. And so I took the dive and been there ever since in education, almost 15 years later. Yep. And but it's just one of those things where I think if we start framing those thoughts and having those prayers now, even if you're just entering high school and you're about to be a freshman and you're absolutely petrified, I would also say, like, find someone who's gone through it and start talking to them. If you're a freshman, talk to a senior, right? Even if they're not your D group leader yet or whatever, or someone who just graduated, go ahead and talk to those people. Reach out to an older sibling just to start getting your feet wet in terms of like expectations, and so you're not necessarily surprised. So I'd start praying through those types of opportunities, and just I would say pray for community. There's another big one. Whether you're going off to college, especially those freshmen going off to college, pray for a community. It's so important to get plugged into some place, whether it be a campus ministry or a church, well, both hopefully, but just finding those communities to help pour into you, to help keep you afloat, help carry you when you're stumbling, and then you can help carry others when they're stumbling. So I think that's a huge prayer for my people jettisoning off to college.
Well, and I would say kind of one last thing I'd add, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Just because some of our listeners, either they are the parents of or the athletes who are doing kind of summer sports programs to get ready for the fall. And hey, man, you know, push as hard as you can, make that work. And most of the time, as we're talking within kind of the Christian framework, everybody's always going to say like, "Hey, I'm doing this to honor the Lord." And I mean, I have no reason to doubt that they want that, but I think summertime too can be a kind of a preseason time to prepare your heart that, hey, you can honor the Lord through your sport, even if you work as hard as you can and you still don't get the starting role, or you still, or some, you know, God forbid an injury happens or something like that. Like you can begin to reframe that. Like I'm not just playing X sport to glorify myself. If I'm truly doing this to glorify Jesus, I promise you, whether you're on the bench or on the field or on the court or wherever, you can have that opportunity to do that. And so the Lord can use this time to cultivate that in us as well. And so, John, I think we're out of time. And because you know what? It's summertime and we get to go enjoy and now practice everything that and we will do it imperfectly, which is why we need the grace of Jesus. But that felt like a drug disclaimer. Yeah, like you're buying this prescription drug might cause. Okay, so, but hey, we are super excited, as always, that you took the time to join us here on the Courageous Conversations podcast. We pray and hope that you have a wonderful summer, full of intentionality, full of spending time with Jesus, full of spending time with loved ones. And we hope to see you again soon here on the Courageous Conversations podcast.